Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, where I, your host Mark Decano, talk to those who would know about what comedy is. Every day I'm grateful for the ability and opportunity to laugh, and to those who create those opportunities. But does comedy mean the same to me as it does to them? In these interviews, I hope to find out. I love talking to comedians about comedy, and if you like listening to what they have to say as much as I do, then please like, subscribe, review, rate and share the podcast. My guest this episode has been doing stand-up comedy for going on 6 years, but listeners may already be familiar with his work creating promotional campaigns for TV shows such as Hypothetical, Big Zoo's Big Eats, Judge Romesh, Meet the Richardsons, and many more. All that, and he's got a dog. It's stand-up comedian Martin Graham. Hello.
Hey Mark, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Yeah, good. Just sitting on the couch with my dog.
So, should we dive in?
Yeah, sounds good.
People listening to this might know you as a stand-up comedian, but what they might not know is that they will have heard your works many times before because, of course, you create promo movies as well. So I'll have seen your work on Dave many times. So I need to ask you about that. But first and foremost, what are you to you? Are you a comedian? Are you a writer? Are you a director?
I guess I am all of those things. I'm just someone who wants to make comedy. I just want to achieve funny. That's kind of all I'm ever trying to do, whether that's through writing a promo script or directing a shoot and like thinking how that works visually and how you can make funny out of that, and or whether that's stand up. I'm just a big fan of comedy, and I just I love creating stuff. I think I am most happy when I'm working hard to sort of, when I'm creating something that I think might be something that I could, be proud of or be happy to have made. I think that's when I feel the most sort of satisfied. So it's, I'm just somebody who loves making stuff, I think. Is the answer to that one, and just someone who is just trying to achieve funny. That's all. And a lot of the time I fail to achieve that, but I'm just always, that's all I'm sort of working for, I guess.
What came first? What was your route in?
My route into stand up, or my route into
to comedy?
Day job? To comedy.
Did the day job come first? Or what were your aspirations when you started out?
So the day job came first, but not at Dave. I only joined Dave after I'd started doing comedy, and sort of that was the specialized route that I was taking. I made promos for ESPN first, then Channel 5, then AMC, and then ultimately ended up at Dave as somebody who loves comedy and sort of has that passion. The day job came first. I moved to London in about 2011 to pursue the day job. And I didn't start stand-up. I thought about starting stand-up my whole life, as I'm sure most people who end up starting stand-up. It wasn't like an overnight decision. It's one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't start, because I remember when I was 18 maybe, there was a comedy course at the City of Glasgow College, I think it was, and I don't know how I saw it advertised or something, and I signed up for it, and it was going to be like night classes for a few weeks or something. It was hosted, or it was taught by a successful comedian who early 2000s, this would have been about 2005 maybe, and I was all booked up. I'd signed up for it, but then the comedian couldn't do it in the end, so it got cancelled. And that was when I was 18, and I didn't start until I was 29. So from 18 till 29 it had been something that I was like, I'd like to give that a go sometime. But I wish I'd started earlier. I never thought it was something I could do. I would watch stand up and I would be like, wow, those people think differently from how I think. I couldn't do that. I'm not capable of doing that. And what I didn't know then, but know now, is just that I'd never tried to do it. Like anyone can do it. You're just telling your story. That's, in a way that you can, I don't know, I guess I'll come on to that maybe in the what is comedy in a nutshell, but it's something that like anyone can do stand up if you work at it. Anyone can play guitar if you work at it. Do you know what I mean? It's just something that you have to put the time in to learn how to do. And I would watch stand up and think I'm just not capable of doing that. But that was just because I just assumed that because I had never tried to do it. And then when I tried to do it, I sort of discovered it was something that I really enjoyed doing. And then and now here we are.
Yeah. So if you're making these promos, these videos, because you're writing them and you're directing them, how do you differentiate between being the creator and being the audience member who's ultimately going to be watching it? Are you able to see it as an audience member?
I suppose so, yeah. I think I guess the convenient thing about working on Dave is that their target audience is me. I'm firmly in sort of like, what is it, 25 to 44-year-old fans of comedy or thereabouts, is generally the audience that Dave's marketing is trying to reach.
Yeah.
So I already have the advantage of being one of those people. And so I try and write kind of what I think would be funny. Sometimes it's handy because you're working with someone who has quite a strong comedic voice that you can write in, like John Richardson I've done a lot of shoots with, and Romesh Ranganathan as well. And you kind of can write in there. They have like quite a obvious persona that you can write in, and you know what their attitude towards certain things would be. And I always get a brief from marketing, a sort of core thought that I would align any ideas with. Yeah. So it's kind of, then I can have a bit of fun with how does the talent think, how did they respond to that core thought line, and what would be the kind of funny interplay there with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's just, I guess I've always got, because it's not like I'm just writing comedy for fun. It's what do they call it? It's like commercial art. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not just doing art. I'm not going like, oh, I've got James Acaster for a day, I can do whatever I want. It has to be around their content,
right?
Around it has to, the main thing the audiences have to get from it is that this series starts on this date. And so it's not, it's great. I can have fun and I can come up with silly ideas and write silly lines in a script, but the most important thing is that it has to explain what the show is. So a lot of the stuff that I've done quite frustratingly starts off with, hello, I'm Name, and my new show is, and it's kind of, it's like trying to do that in a as creative a way as possible, I guess, is the fun part, and sort of, trying to keep the laughs up or get some laughs in. But
I suppose if it was me, from my perspective, just because there's the names of these people that, I mean, you've mentioned John Richardson, and I know you've obviously done promos for Sarah Pascoe and Greg Davies, and these people just sort of go, oh yeah, I'll write this and it'll all be great, and then you get in the room and you go, hey, hang on a minute, that's Greg Davies. Or do you go from the other side and go, I'm going to make Greg Davies bark like a dog today?
No, it's it's very like, there was one moment where I did one with Romesh where it was for Judge Romesh, and it was about how he didn't have any legal qualifications. Yes. He was on set and we were shooting him, and the idea was that it was an interplay between him and the voiceover, but obviously the voiceover artist wasn't there on the day. It was me on the day shouting the voiceover's lines at him. So I remember there was one take where I just shouted, I think, like, I was like, can we just keep going over and over, and you can say whatever you want in response. And so I would be like, oh, he knows nothing about the law. And he's like, all right, mate. Like, and it's like, I was like, this is just such a silly moment where I'm just shouting at Romesh Ranganathan from across the room, he knows nothing about the law, or whatever the lines were. And he was just like improvising responses to it. So that was quite a because he was very good at being in character he's getting annoyed at this voiceover, but I was like, I don't know where the line is where he's like, all right mate, that's enough. Like
Yeah.
But yeah, generally I think that's the only time that I've been like, this is a bit of a crazy request. But no, it's it's so much fun being able to work with people like obviously Romesh, Sarah Pascoe, James Acaster. I refer to them all as my friends from work.
I mean, it must be interesting because obviously you're writing these pieces, and then you're in the room with these comic minds, and like you say there, you've got Romesh, riffing against the voiceover lines. How much of it do you script, and how much do you just let them play around with
it? It all has to be fully scripted before we can take the idea to them. So I have to give a full script, otherwise their agent won't put the idea forward to them to see if they'll do it, kind of thing. So that it's the suggestion for their availability has to come with a fully finished script. But I'll always, on the day, and when I send the scripts to them, it always comes with but please reword it to how you would talk, or to like if you think there's a better joke in there or something. But they very rarely do that. So like the Romesh one it all had a script written, but then there was that take that I talked about where we just let him improvise different lines to respond to the voiceover. So sometimes we'll do that, but a lot of the time they're not, the talent aren't comfortable doing that generally. I think Romesh is the only one that I've done that with. Maybe there's the Richardsons, John Richardson and Lucy Beaumont. I did a whole shoot with them that they improvised. In fact, I've done 2 whole shoots with them that they've improvised, and they're tremendous. They're so much fun. They have such a great dynamic, and they just you can we still had to send them shoots on the day, but we just sat down and pointed the cameras at them, and they were hilarious. And
fantastic. So when you finally decided I'm going to get into stand-up comedy, what was the catalyst? What was the thing that took you to the stage?
Well, I did one of Angel Comedy's courses with Francis Foster in like February 2017. My first gig was April 2017, so it was probably a couple of months before that. I did this sort of 5-week course with Francis. And I think it was probably just I didn't really have anything else going on. I think I just was, I'd always wanted to do it, and I'd kind of gone, I saw that they were doing a course, because I've always loved Angel Comedy. That's kind of where I first started going regularly to watch comedy, was at the Camden Head in like 2014, 15. It was like the place that anytime I had friends down from home for the weekend or whatever, they'd be like, oh, what should we do? And I'd be like, oh, I know this great comedy place. And I'd take them there. And then the Bill Murray opened, it must have been like 2016 maybe. And then I was always, that was my place. I was always lurking around there. And so I was on the mailing list, and they sent out that they had a course going. And I remember I thought about it for weeks. I'd seen that it was coming up on this date. And I thought about it for weeks. And then it got to like the date that the course was starting. It was in my mind, like I could go to that tonight. I hadn't signed up or anything. I was like, I could just do that. I could just like pay whatever it was, 150 quid, and just go to that tonight and just do 5 weeks of comedy. And then at like, I remember sitting at my desk at work at like 4 or 5 p.m. that day, just like, oh, fuck it, and just hit pay and went and turned up to that. And it changed my life completely, like my whole, like everything. Like I met my partner through picking on her in an audience, and now we have a child. Like there's
that's commitment.
Do you know what I mean? It's it's a long bit of crowd work that I'm doing. It's changed everything about my life. Like a lot of my friends are comedians. I guess my job, I probably wouldn't have, certainly don't think I would have gotten a job at Dave if I didn't have that string to my bow, because they asked me about that in the interview. So I think it was I think just that was an interest that I had was quite important to them. And it's helped me with my job as well, because I can write. I know what a joke is from spending so much time obsessing over comedy and how to write material and what material is and why something's funny and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, that was how I got started. I did Francis's course at Angel, and then I didn't do it often from there. Like, I didn't get into it right away, because as well, I started off as a kind of one-liner comedian as well, which is what, I don't know, that like what I was writing was so shit. It was like, I've listened back to the audio recordings of my first gigs, and God, it's embarrassing. Like, I had friends come to those. Like, it's humiliating in retrospect that I brought friends along to watch me say that material. But I started off as doing one, like, because when I started, I think I really loved Mitch Hedberg. He was a big influence on like the kind of comedy I wanted to do, because it was like one-liners, but it wasn't punny one-liners. It was like observations that like what's the, like, rice is great for when you're hungry and you want to eat 2,000 or something.
Yeah.
And like that kind of thing. And that was what I wanted to write at first. And I did that. And I remember the course, we all had to go up, and like in one of the weeks, like maybe the second week, we all had to go up and do some material in front of everyone. It was the first time that most of us had ever done that. And I remember I did like a string of one-liners, and everyone in the room, well, I think Francis was like, you want to be a one-liner comedian? And it just kind of, I was like, all right, is there like a kind of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but that's kind of not the dream for everyone. I was surprised by how negatively it was received by the others in the room. That I was doing one-liners, because everyone else was kind of storytelling. And obviously, I think one-liners they're kind of drifting into the past. There's not many one-liner comedians anymore. But that was what I did at first. But it wasn't right for me doing like that kind of structure, I don't think. And I just wasn't good at I wasn't good at anything, because I'd only just started. And so yeah, I after that course, I started forcing myself to go up on stage. I didn't enjoy it at all at first, the actual comedy part of it. I enjoyed this new kind of world that I'd discovered, and I enjoyed all of the learning about where the nights are and who you contact for the nights. And but I hated doing the comedy. I just felt so awkward, and I felt really self-conscious about the fact that I even did it. I never felt like I was funny either. So I kind of kept doing it because I was stubborn, and I sort of really wanted to learn how to do it, but I didn't enjoy being on stage at all. And I probably only I did the King Gong in January 18, which was about 9 months after the course. And that was my 28th gig. So I'd only done about 20 gigs maybe in the year I did the course, which isn't many for a comic. And I didn't fall in love with it until probably 2019. So I kind of, 2018, I had some great moments, actually. I enjoyed 2018. Maybe mid 2018, I started kind of feeling like I can see how I'm improving at this. And that's quite satisfying.
Well, you mentioned them doing the King Gong, and then in terms of competitions from 2018, you started to be semi-finalists, you finalists doing So You Think You're Funny, you did the Leicester Square New Comedian of the Year. So regardless of how you pictured yourself as a comedian, obviously other people was telling you were funny.
No, totally. That was I guess because the So You Think You're Funny thing was great. I really enjoyed getting to that semi-final. But then the annoying thing was the heat was in London, and that went really well. That was at the Backyard in London. Then I went up to Edinburgh for the semi-final, and all of my school friends came because it was the first time I'd done a gig in Edinburgh. And then I thought I'd had a dreadful gig at that. I obviously didn't get through to the final. And I thought I'd had an awful gig. And then it was compounded by the fact that my friends had come to see me for the first time. And sort of like, oh, Martin's trying comedy now. Let's go see how shit he is at it. and then I felt like I'd really let everyone down by not being good and not, I don't know. I think I felt like when I came off stage, I'd had a bad set, and then compounded by the fact that I didn't get into the final. I just thought, oh God, I'm a joke to my friends. Like, what must they be saying about that fiasco when I'm not around? And so, but yeah, like, I guess I never felt like I was a real comedian for a long time. I felt like I'd kind of, it's like the imposter syndrome thing. Like it was, I think, Patrick Spicer I was talking to once, and he said this sort of thought, and I'm probably butchering what he meant by it, but he was like, but you are a comedian, like you've done this so many times, you do comedy regularly, you undeniably are a comedian. And yeah, even at that point I was kind of like, I'm not, kind of always struggled with feeling like I'm not as interesting or witty as the other people around me. But yeah, but now, I mean, yeah, fast forward to sort of 2019, I was really enjoying it. 2020, I was really enjoying. I did all the stand clubs in 2020, in March 2020, like the 1st to 3rd of March.
Yeah,
I was going around spreading COVID up and down the country, doing the stand clubs, and that was amazing. I did the stand clubs at the start of March, and then I had my first 10 spot on a Saturday night at the Bill Murray booked for July 2020.
Yeah.
And then obviously none of that happened, and all that momentum just completely went. And then I was stuck in my house for a long time, as we all were.
Yeah.
But it took a while to get going, but yeah, by end of 2018, 19, I was really into the swing of things. And
yeah. So when that's happened now, you get to 2020, you finally found your comedy legs. Yeah. Then what happens? How do you get through a pandemic?
I enjoyed the break of not, because I had been gigging 3-4 nights a week. And I just thought that was the kind of only way I knew how to live my life up until that. Well, from the last 2 years, I was like, this is a thing that I have to do now. And when you're in comedy, you kind of feel like you have to keep, like, you can't turn down gigs, especially ones at good places that you think could lead to progression. And you kind of get really sort of tunnel vision about how you kind of have to, if someone offers you something, you have to take it. And then it's like, you have to take the new material dates to strengthen your sets. If you're doing competitions or if you're trying to build material, you've always got to be churning out to try and find something new that you can create or that you can hone. So when 2020 came along, I enjoyed the break. I thought I was going to be more productive than I was in the end. I thought like, pandemic, that'll be a good chance for me to sit and write an hour. And that's just not how things work.
Yeah.
I did 2 Zoom gigs over the whole pandemic. One was an angel comedy one, which I loved. That one was excellent. It was they had like the right amount of audience unmuted, so you got some laughter back at you. I chose to stand up when I did it, which I think like made me look a lot more keen than everyone else, because it's quite clear that I was standing, but I just thought I'm always standing when I do gigs, so I thought I'll try and stand. And so that was great. That gave me the buzz that I got from doing real stand-up. And then I did a corporate gig. I don't remember anything about them, but I didn't realize that my Wi-Fi was cutting off quite regularly throughout my set.
Oh, right.
And so I died on my arse for many reasons, but one of which was that they didn't hear what I was saying a lot of the time. And I was oblivious because, oh no, do you know, it was ran by my friend Marco, who's Italian, and he had a guy, the guy who set up all of the Zoom tech was Italian, and he was in Italy, and I don't think he spoke English. So I was getting these messages in block caps with exclamation marks in Italian through the chat, like privately to me while I was doing the set. And I was like, should I reference the, like, this was right at the end. This was at maybe April 2021. And so I was so uncomfortable gigging. Like, I hadn't been gigging regularly.
Yeah.
I was just racing through my material as much as I could. And I was getting these little messages in Italian. I was too scared to kind of derail my set and go, I'm getting weird messages in Italian here. So I just ignored them and carried on and did, I think it was 16 minutes I did, completely unaware that I was cutting out half the time. Because you don't know, do you, that you're cutting out. So yeah, that was a mess. And then it took me a while to get back into it. Yeah, I feel like I've only just gotten back to being able to do a sort of 20-minute set. But yeah, I also had a kid at the start of this year, so that's took a few months off for that, and don't get out so much at the moment.
You said it was, quite different, but how was it getting back onto a stage after the pandemic? Was it like getting onto the stage again for the first time because it's so different? Or, how quickly do you get back into the swing of where you were in 2019?
It's the kind of jarring thing for me was that I didn't want to do any of the material that I was doing pre-2020. But I had to, because it's the only stuff that works. So I'm there, and even I think it's all of the sort of bits are gone now. I still use the same opening line just because I feel like it's a crutch that I need. But all of the bits that I did, I think, are finally gone now, or at least I don't need them. I can use them if I have to. But the thing that I didn't like about that was I kind of feel like stuff that I wrote in 2018 doesn't fit me at all anymore,
right,
as a stand-up or as a person, I guess. And it's quite jarring, I think, when, like, I don't know, I think you saw me in Hammersmith. I did a bit about the pull-out method, which suited me in 2018 maybe, or maybe suits a different audience from the Hammersmith gig that we were at. But it's when after it fell completely flat, and I'd been doing all right up until that point, and it just went because it was jarring. It was gross, and it was an overshare, and it wasn't right for the character that I had built up to that audience that I presented for the sort of 15 minutes prior to starting that bit to that audience. And then they're like, what the fuck? And it's like that. So that bit I've kind of learned just doesn't fit me anymore. Like that night, I kind of took a note in my phone, so I write up about every gig and little observations about how it went, and wrote down, like, that bit just doesn't fit me anymore. And so there's stuff like that. Like, I had loads of stuff in 2018 about living in house shares and never being able to afford a car and stuff like that. and obviously I'm now shackled down with a family, so I can't be like, oh, my flatmates are wankers, and then the next line be like, oh, I've got a daughter, because then it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like two different lives now. So I can't dip back into the me that lived in a flat share, even if I've got a really good bit about flatmates being wankers. Yeah. Not that I ever had any flatmates that were wankers, but but yeah, it's just, I guess it's the kind of attitude I had when in 2018 things, I guess, weren't going well for me, and I was angry. Like, my material came from like, oh, this is annoying. Do you know what I mean? And now it's more like, now what I write is more like sort of observations about my life and stories from my life where I can make fun of myself a little bit. I definitely haven't written a bit in a while where I've found something that I'm annoyed about and pretended to be annoyed on stage, which is such a hard thing to put on night after night. Like, oh, what's this? How's so many folk not got lighters? Like, because I have a bit about smokers not having lighters, and every time I did it, I had to be like, I'm so angry about these smokers that don't have a lighter. And I'm like, I'm not angry at all. Like, do you know what I mean? I've just got to, but like I committed to having to approach the bit like that.
We mentioned a couple of the competitions that you were in. Obviously, you've done a bunch more. I've mentioned a couple, but also you won Beat the Blackout. You were semi-finalist at 2 North Downs New Act in 21. How are you in competitions? Do you enjoy that? Does it put enough pressure on you to ramp up the comedy, or do you just go into it with dread? What's your story there?
I've never gone into one thinking I could win this competition. So it's always been a case of just try and get as far as I can.
Yeah.
Try and hoodwink the judges to think that I can progress one more stage. So it's always been that. They're always fun to do. Like, it's always a great gig, a competition. There's the audience are always up for it. The acts are always really good. It's always a good night of comedy that you're playing a part in. So
yeah.
From that sort of point of view, it's just a fun night to take part in. And then if you progress, then it's a little buzz.
Yeah.
But I've never entered a competition that I thought I could be the winner of. I've just sort of done it because I don't know why I enter them. Just because everyone else enters them, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's a good gig. And I suppose it is like a challenge to work towards, because you want to bring a really good set to that competition. So it gives you a real kick up the arse to try and get something together that works.
Yeah.
But yeah, I the only one that I've been in the final of was the Max Turner one, the Cavendish Arms competition. Or I guess like the Blackout in the King Gong. I've won the Blackout and I've been in the night's final of the King Gong, but they're not like a sort of multiple heat competition. Right. The only multiple heat kind of one is the Cavendish Arms, and that was such a great night, that final. It was Bemi that won, who's tremendous, and was absolutely deservedly the winner of that. But just, I couldn't have done any better in my set that night than I did. It was such a fun night. Everything landed. The audience were so up for it. And so that in itself was a fun experience. And I don't think I was bothered that I didn't place or anything. I think I was fine with that. I just had a really fun gig, and that was what mattered. Yeah, everyone who placed and who won did so deservedly. So no complaints.
When you're talking about, you said, "Oh, I don't go into the competition thinking I can win." Do you think I may not win the competition, but I have to have a deserving, an award-winning set, or are you trying to write all new material, or are you picking from past successes?
I think I'm just trying to write the strongest. So if it's a 5-minute set or a 7 minutes, I'm just trying to write the strongest 5 or 7 minutes that I can. I get very tired of doing old material. So ideally, I wouldn't want anything that I've done in a previous competition with. Like if I were to enter 2 North Down, I didn't enter anything this year, but if I were to have entered 2 North Down this year, having got to the semi-finals last year, I wouldn't even consider just going up and doing the same set that I did last year, because what would be the point in that? And also I wouldn't want them to think that I'm just sort of shoveling out the same 5 minutes year after year. So that, it would be different. I think every year I've had a different set in any competition that I've done from the previous year. And so, it would be about turning around the strongest 5 minutes that I can. And I definitely have before left out bits. The sort of strongest minute that I have wasn't in my 2 North Down set because it just didn't fit with the I think it was the 5 minutes that I did in that set. So I would bin that 5 minutes and I would have another one. But I didn't enter anything this year. But I do. I enjoy them. I also worry I'm not really a new act anymore. I kind of think maybe that ship has sailed for me. Because I started in 2017, as much discussed. because what's like usually the limit's sort of 4 or 5 years, which we're at now. And so, yeah, I just don't think, I don't know, I think I've missed the new act ship has sailed, but I've got a decent amount of accolades from competitions and things.
Yeah.
I'm all right with it. I'm all right with not doing them anymore. I might do the not so new act of the year sometime, or one of those ones. But
are you a sit down writer, or are you someone who just thinks of a thing and makes a note? How's your process in that regard?
Yeah, it's both. It's so I've got notes. I've got always phone notes. So every month I start a new one, comedy September 2022, and then any thoughts that come to me, and sometimes they come just while I'm asleep, and they don't make sense. But like I'll literally write everything down that I think of that could possibly work as a bit, or as not even just as a bit, just any funny thought that I've had. Like there's a lot of things that, because I've got lists, I've been taking these notes for years, and I've had the same phone for years, and so I've got every month since like 2018 or something, where every silly thought I've had is in there. And what I find quite useful now is going back to the 2018 observations, and there's stuff that I back then couldn't make work, but now I have a tiny bit more of a skill set, and I kind of know a little bit more about crafting. So yeah, I go back to the notes that I wrote in 2018 now, with the eyes that I've got now and the skill set, the slightly more advanced skill set that I've got now. And I can see what I meant by that.
Right.
And how now I would turn that into a bit, or even if it's just an observation, I now know how to go, well, this thing is like this thing, and make that work. So yeah, I take notes on my phone, but I also sit down and write a lot. I do that 2 or 3 times a week, where I just sit with my laptop, and I have comedy writing September 2022 Word documents, and I'll just sometimes it's just free writing. Sometimes I'll kind of write sort of like a diary about something that's happened recently or what's been going on today. And quite often things come out of that as well. And sometimes I'll dip into my phone notes, and I'll take like the line that's in my phone notes and try and expand it in Word.
Yeah.
I do that quite a lot. I mean, 99.9% of the stuff that I type is just the worst. It's like it would never remotely work. It's kind of like, I think the trick is to not be afraid of how shit what you're writing is.
Yeah.
This is something that I think Dan Harmon, who created like Community and Rick and Morty, he talks about writing in that just write. No, like, just be comfortable with the fact that no one's ever going to see this. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to, like, never imagine any pair of eyes from anyone else looking at what you're writing. Just write.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to just lose yourself, like lose any sort of consciousness about what you're writing. Like, oh God, what if my partner sees this one day? Or what if my mom and dad see this? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, you just have to write and know that no one else is going to see it.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of more open to the ideas coming, and just writing, you come out with stuff quite often in the end. And I think a lot of the best, like some of the stuff I do is stuff that I've just tried on stage and it's worked.
Yeah.
But I'd say probably 60% of it has come from just sitting down and typing on Word, and then stumbling upon a thought that I've typed out that I didn't really ever think about being funny before, and then expanding on that.
Have you developed any particular philosophies or lessons learned that you take forward from show to show, saying I must do this or I must not do this?
Yeah, oh, totally. So many. When I started, I used to do this all the time on stage. After every joke, I would just go like that. I used to look at the floor.
Just for the benefit of the audio, could you describe what you just did?
Sorry, I was rubbing my goatee. I would just stand and rub my goatee like a deep thinker for after every punchline, I would stand and do that. So I go on stage. There are a sort of checklist of things that I make sure I do it at the start of every gig. I have to plant my feet on the ground. I have to put this arm's holding the mic, but the right arm's holding the mic. I have to put my left arm straight down my side because it feels, I wonder if it's like a defensive thing, but for a long time, this arm stayed bent.
Right.
While the other arm held the microphone. And as soon as I one day just let it straighten down by my side, I looked and felt more natural.
Right.
And so, but it feels unnatural to do. It feels like I have to consciously go, right, put this arm straight. I have to plant my feet because I'll dance about if I don't plant my feet. A lot of actors say that their characters come from their feet as well. And I think when I plant my feet down, and if I need to express anything, I do it just by bending my knees, I kind of feel funnier or more confident. I feel far more confident if I have my feet planted down for some reason. It's just a little thing that goes through my head, I guess. But that's the feet planted and the arms straight are two things that, as I'm in the first minute of any set, I'm not like, there's at some point in my head, I'm like, right, those things. In terms of other sort of routines that I have pre going up, I always like to be standing up long before I go on stage. I don't know what effect that has. I think that's just just something in my head. I don't know what else there is. I like being loose. If I can, I always like to throw in some kind of observation about the room.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a fancy wine bar that I'm, a Scottish guy, and then I reference that, like in Woking.
Yeah,
I feel like that loosens me up. I don't know. Another thing that I'm always conscious of is that the audience are in whatever state the performer is in.
Right.
And if you're having fun, then generally they're having fun. And the only reason, like, if you're dying on your arse, but you're having fun dying on your arse, that's fine. That, like, you're not gonna look tragic if you kind of don't seem phased by the fact you're dying on your arse, or if you're having a hard time.
Yeah.
But if you're dying on your arse and you're going, oh, I got more for that last night, or whatever the thing you say is, or referencing the fact that a joke bombed, then it looks like it's thrown you, and it looks like you're not enjoying yourself. And if you're not enjoying yourself, then the audience is never going to enjoy themselves. So recently I've started thinking, kind of just try and have fun is one of the main, it's probably the most important thing about it, because like I say, if you're having fun, they're having fun. And they're not going to watch someone who's no one's going to enjoy watching someone who's having a genuinely horrible time. It's going to be awkward. You get acts that pretend they're having a horrible time, but they're having fun doing that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think if you're up there and your stuff's bombing and you're getting upset about it, then it's only going to make everyone uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned the word character a minute ago, and you talk about these physical attributes that you put to yourself going onto the stage. As these things that Martin Graham, comedian, does. That's not Martin Graham, the man on the couch waiting to go on stage. Is this a character that you're playing? This man, he stands with this. He doesn't move his feet. Him on the stage, I do. He doesn't. Is that what it's like?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. The real me is not entertaining. No one would buy a ticket to see the real me talk. My stand-up persona, I suppose, is a much more confident version of me, I think. I think I took a long time to get there. I certainly in the first year or two was awkward and nervous, and you feel that coming back from the audience. So probably through knowing that the audience will respond to whatever state I'm in, I became more brave and confident, and it was now I don't get at all nervous before going on stage. Before I go on stage, I'm excited about just let me on kind of thing. And there's no nerves whatsoever. And I'm kind of not, it can go however it goes, and I'm not going to care, which it took a long time to get to. But the difference between, I guess, me as a stand-up and me as a person is I'm just not. I'm definitely not the person that's cracking jokes. I don't think. I'm not the funniest of my friends or the funniest person. I suppose I probably veer towards the sort of shy side, sort of socially. So that's, so it's very different. I'm more who I wish I could be socially on stage, I think.
How far does that separation between your stage persona and yourself allow you to enjoy comedy in and of itself without dissecting what the comedian's doing?
Like how much is that?
If you're on a mixed bill and you've got other comedians performing, is your mindset, well, comedian me is on in a minute, audience me watching them, am I looking for the punchline? Am I working out that's clever what they've done there? Yeah. Or do you just absorb the entertainment and let yourself laugh?
Oh no, I'm very, very analytical when I watch comedy. I am trying to, and even on like Instagram, if I'm watching someone's reels, I'll be racing to try and get to the punchline before they say it. I'll kind of like, what would be the punchline of this? And then I've always a little bit when I get it, because you can you notice patterns, and you notice through setups where the idea is going, and you always know what the subversion. We don't always know, but like quite often you can guess what the subversion is going to be on the punchline. And so I'm very much in the analytical mindset of like, and then if something works, like why did it work? What sort of a joke is just two or more converging ideas is what any joke is, just two or more converging ideas. So I'll always look at things and then go, what were the two converging ideas on that? What about that thing was similar to that thing that made the joke? So I definitely watch as a nerd rather than as someone who just switches off and enjoys it. But because you watch a lot of comedy, don't you? Are you sort of in that? Do you watch things trying to be a step ahead of the punchline?
Sometimes I do, and then I kind of catch myself doing it and tell myself to stop doing that and just chill out, But I get those moments where I go, I know what they're going to say next. I know what where this is definitely going, and also I love to see alternative comedy like Tony Law. I absolutely love Tony Law, and I never have a clue what he's going to say next, and I love that. It's just chaos. The man's insane, and I adore him. He's fantastic.
No, I do it as well with sitcoms, or with anything. If anything happens in a script of something, it has to be referenced later. Is kind of what I've found. Like if you cut to, I don't know, if you're watching the main character and anything, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like things always have to tie back up. There's never loose ends, so you always see things come. I'm trying to think of anything that I've.
Well, it's the same with like in the detective stories. It's the same. It's like walk past and they go, "Oh look, there's a shoe there." And you go, "Well, that's going to come back, isn't it?"
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Why point that out?
Yeah. No, it's totally when it ruins your enjoyment of any entertainment when you start. When you kind of watch it as like, well, they've only put that there because they're going to come back to it, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, we've talked about your being somewhat self-deprecating. We've talking about the phrase "die on stage" came up a lot. So tell me about your best moment. What so far has been your defining instant on stage?
Oh, one instant on stage. I'm trying to think of what the kind of biggest high has. Do you know what? It's probably something really that to an outsider wouldn't look like that much. Like there was one an open mic night in Surbiton, and this was middle of 2021. It was a whole lot of comedy that put on the night, and It was at the Castle, which is just a little pub.
Yeah, I know it.
That has an open. Yeah, it's got an open mic night, and they have regulars that go to this gig.
Yeah.
Who I guess live locally, and they had a few other sort of normal audience in who weren't acts, and it was it was by no means a packed room. It just had maybe like 10 real audience who weren't comedians. But I went up, and I remember this was the first time I'd seen a table of the regulars, none of whom were comedians. And I was doing my material, and they were belly laughing. And that was the first kind of moment where I was like, I've got a skill, or I've crafted this skill that I can use to make people have a good night. Like I was watching them and just feeling like they're not going to regret that they came to the comedy tonight. They are going to be like, this was a great night. We're having a great time. And then that was the first time I felt it. And I've felt it a few more times since, where I've just kind of looked around and sort of felt proud about being able to provide that feeling to people when I'm on stage, where I've worked at this craft over the years that I can now give to people, and they definitely in that moment are having a good time. And because my biggest fear is that people are going to regret coming to a gig because I stank it out. And, so this is the opposite of that. This is like, these people were laughing uncontrollably, and they're going to be so happy that they chose to spend their night doing this. And I gave them that feeling. Yeah. So it's not like the sort of best gig I've ever had or the biggest achievement I've ever had. It's just one moment where I realized, I think that was the moment where I realized, or where I stopped doing it for me and started doing it for audiences, which I think made a big difference. Because when I started, I just wanted to get better at comedy. I wanted to learn how to do comedy. Like, I was doing it for me to get better and for me to have good gigs and stuff. But from that night onwards, I felt a shift in that I'm doing it for you to have a good gig, or for you to have a good night, rather than something I'm doing for myself. It's a skill that I have that I can use to make people's day a bit better. Yeah. And that was the first moment that I felt it shift. I did want it. My first gig back after having the baby was at the Bill Murray, and I felt it there as well. But I think that was more just because I'd had 3 or 4 months off and I hadn't gigged, and then they are obviously always a great audience. And so I just felt the buzz of, I can provide people with this feeling, which is a crazy power to have. That I don't even really have. Like, I mean, some people, I don't feel like I could always give an audience a great night yet, but that's what I'm working towards, I guess. But no, it's definitely very much, and that, do you know what? And that night I was in the moment as well. It wasn't. It was never like, oh, in 5 years I'll be better at this, or like, do you know what I mean? It was it's like, this is this is all that matters, is just this audience right now and me providing this for them. It was never like, oh, I might catch a big break or whatever. It was just like, if you just approach every gig as have fun and this is all that matters, like, just entertaining this audience that's here tonight is all that matters. I think you'll do all right.
Excellent. Where can we find out about you? Where are you going to be next?
So I've got the 29th of October. I'm on at the Bill Murray, or I don't know if it's definitely Angel. It's either the Camden Head or the Bill Murray. I'm on Saturday night there, which is always exciting. And I've got a Friday night at the Camden Head, or possibly the Bill Murray, I don't know, on the 4th of November. So I've got those coming up, which they're both with Angel Comedy. It'll say, I'm sure, on the website which venue I'm at. Maybe it won't, but yeah, I'm at Angel Comedy, 29th October, 4th of November, and yeah, I've got Aldershot. I've got Hecklers in Aldershot on the 10th of November, which is exciting. I've never even been to Hecklers, but I think heckling is encouraged, which is it's gonna be interesting to find out how I cope with that, because I don't think it'll be well.
Oh, wow.
But yeah.
Fantastic. So finally then, can you please sum up for me what is comedy in a nutshell?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this in the old back burner as we've gone. And I think that, to me, comedy is telling your story and sharing your experiences with people who that might sort of, well, people who relate to that and people who might get something from that, and sort of giving or creating something that strikes a chord in other people. For me, I would say that's just about giving people joy and you know, sharing your story and giving joy. That's so lame, isn't it? That's, God, I sound like a bloody Care Bear. Oh God, I don't. I mean, it's about a lot. That's what it's about to me. But I can appreciate that that's different from what it's about to other people. From what other people, it might be about calling something out that you don't agree with and whatnot. And for me, at times, as a comedian, I've felt that way. But that's still sharing my experience if I'm calling something out that I don't agree with. But I'd say sharing your experience, just giving people something joyful.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark.
I really enjoyed that. I really appreciate you taking part today.
Great.
Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, man. No, thank you very much for asking me to do it.
Thank you.
Cheers.